People want to see how we are doing. So, deep breath. I'm going to light a candle. It's my ritual. Welcome, Carola.
Welcome.
You want to light something there or light up your eyes, light up your heart a little bit. Yay. Take a few breaths. So, again, welcome. We're gonna kind of dive into a subject today that was inspired by Mimi's question in a individual session we did recently. And maybe when we get there, I'll invite you, Mimi, to ask your question again, to bring the context out of which that question grew. But it kind of opened up a doorway into working with the bones and the skeleton in general. So that's what I hope we'll do today, which is a great thing to do when it feels like everything is quaking and shaking, is to go to the bones, to go to that basic structure. And been doing some work with Bonnie Cohen in her class, which is ostensibly about the nervous system, but Bonnie never just teaches one thing. So here is Eileen. Welcome, Yehudit, in the midst of everything that you are dealing with. So welcome. I'm just kind of introducing our overview for today. And we'll have more time to talk, but I'd love to dive into moving. So just to bring ourselves present, similar to what we did last time when we met, is to just take a moment to breathe and distill a word or a phrase that kind of captures the essence. As we're going to look at that, the word for bone, etzem, also means essence. As we're going to be looking at bones and essences. So just the essence of of what you're bringing, what you're arriving with today. And in speaking that essence, that phrase or word, allowing that to be a kind of doorway for yourself to arrive a little bit more fully here. And I'll just start by calling on somebody, and then if you would say your word or phrase, unmute and say it, and then pass it to somebody else. So we'll just go around that way. Mimi, maybe you would start us off.
Be still and know.
Still and know. You want to call on somebody else? So we pass it that way.
Rivka.
Joy emerging between and among the polarities. Joy emerging among and between the polarities. call on Rhonda.
Peace. Within, without. Corolla.
Blessed with beauty, living in beauty.
Hmm. Do you want to, when you're
Oh,
ready?
yeah, Michelle.
Grateful, wobbly, and hopeful.
Michelle, pass it to someone. If you would.
Yahoo Deets.
Almost overwhelmed. Diane?
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Gratitude to each of us for all that we're holding. I want to put on the music that was playing when some of you entered early, which is Ali Halpert's Loosen. And I want to invite you, in whatever way it feels right to you to explore right now, to let that be an invitation to begin to bring forward your bones. So the structure of your skeleton, with great honor and respect to all of your other body systems, to the muscles, the flesh, the fluids, the skin, the organs, to light up your bones and see where that takes you when you offer them the space to lead you, to lead your awareness. So the music is Loosen by Ali Halpert. And just take these few minutes to begin to enter this exploration. And bones, Etsem is bone. Atzmaut, Atzmot, Etsem, all the forms of that. Myself, my essence, the core of who I am in some way. Okay, here we go.
Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't
and holy name. Will you ease this pain? Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let pain. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, holy bride, in holy name, will you ease this pain? Oh, holy bride, will you ease this pain? Will you ease this pain? Will you ease this pain? Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Oh, loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy bride, in holy names, will you ease this pain? Holy bride, will you ease this Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
Taking a pause wherever you are. Just to see if you can begin to allow your bones to float in the tissue. So rather than that sense of being stacked up and weighted in some way, even though the bones are the most solid tissue in the body, they are fluid at the core, especially the long bones have the central canal of marrow. And then that sense that the surrounding tissue and even your organs can expand a little bit or condense a little bit to give the bones more space to just float in the tissue. And some of the bones are more in the shape of containers, like the bones of the skull, the bones of the pelvis, and we're going to be looking at the analogy of skull, bones, pelvis. And some are more at the center, like the bones of the arms and the legs, fingers and toes, surrounded by muscle tissue, membrane. All of it kind of floating. And then just for a moment, see if you can allow yourself to dissolve in some way all of the body contents and begin to feel just a kind of emptiness that's housed in the form of your body. And we'll just do a little bit of this pulsing Qigong breath to amplify your own breath just with your hands and arms. You can do it in front of your solar plexus. You can do it in front of your Yesod center, your hara, or the heart, throat. You can change places along your central column and just, so in this pulsing breath, it opens a little bit on the inhale and then it gently releases towards center on the exhale. And actually, if there's any area of your body that feels kind of tight, numb, painful, you can focus this pulsing and bring your hands near that place and just invite it to begin to breathe, to pulse with the breath. As you allow yourself to feel emptier for these few moments, to become the breath. To become the pulse. This takes us back to almost, we could say it takes us back to pre-creation, to the pre-embodiment state of ourselves. It's just this universal cosmic pulse that everything, every bit of matter in the cosmos participates in some way. It's expanding and condensing, pulsing. And then we're going to gently begin to, with intention, flow back into form through the four-letter name of the divine that is particular to this month of Adar. Hey, hey, Yud, Vav. So ha, ya, ha, ya. If we were to try to pronounce it. Hey, hey, Yud, Vav. Or ha, yaw, yav, yaw, ha, yaw. You can form the letters, the sounds with your mouth and breath and vocal. Ha, yaw, ha, yaw. So staying with as much emptiness as you can, it just, we're beginning to etch as if we could etch with light these letters, the hey above our heads, reaching up, feeling the whole opening as you do that upper hey, hey, and then the second hay in the world of Buriya, perhaps across the shoulders and opening out in the horizontal plane with the 2 feet. So there's that openness horizontally to the eternal horizon of the heart, mind. Next hay. And then into that open space created by the hay, the yud is a little forward curl of the head. So there's a condensing of all of that shefa from the world of Atzilut to the world of Beri'ah. It's a condensing into the world of Yetzirah. And you can just stay for a moment with that yud rounding neck and upper spine and the connection of brain toward the heart with the mouth in the middle. So in a sense of we're containing a lot of feeling here right now. And we have the Vav to be able to channel that perhaps condensed emotion down into the earth. So you can carry it all the way down. You can point and take it with your arms, your head and your spine. Releasing, loosen, letting it go. You don't have to carry it all. You can give it to the earth. And then floating up with the arms again to that upper hay. So we'll do it 7 more times with the melody. You can always pin me if you want to get a sense of what I'm doing, or you can always just pin yourself and do it in the way that feels right to you. So here we go. Hey, hey, you. Let it go. Sweep it up. Hey, hey, you. Breathe in, sweep up, open to the Shafa. Hey, hey, you. Feeling the silence in between. Aleph. Hey, hey, you. Here's the Aleph. Hey, hey, you. Hey, hey, you. Hey, hey, you. Returning to wherever you want to return to, standing perhaps, but the sense of being with this level of embodiment, this divine structure of energy and light that perhaps is a precursor to our more solid selves. And again, just an invitation to move that a little bit with some music. So this is Eli Ata, the Niggin. It's part of Psalm 118, part of the Hallel prayers, Eli Ata, the Chabad Niggin sung by Raza. And just another chance to move and be with yourself here.
Eli ata ve'ata
Wherever you are, we'll take the next couple of moments in silence. Feel where your body wants to be, how your body, mind, spirit, self want to be. Maybe you want to journal a few images or simply rest or continue to move. Call us back in a moment. So let's come together again. And if you're in the middle of something and you want to keep writing or drawing, that's fine. If you want to just take a pause, bookmark something that you can come back to. And again, let's see if we can distill some words, but to keep it just in that essence, that atzamot, the bones, the essence of whatever might be coming through from the practice we just did. It's a real art, I think, to begin to let the speaking, the speech, and the writing come from that embodied place. And just to let it express as an essence. And you also can just hold that close to you if it's not the right moment to speak. But if there is anyone that wants to just share a little bit of what you experienced, the essence of it, please do so. Please unmute and do that. Yeah, Carola.
How this idea of yeah, wow, how, and then this poetry of Allen Ginsberg, howl. howl. So that was helping to release and let go. And then through the movement, my Kumne Tibetan Buddhism, the Buddhist practice of movement, there's swimming in space is one. So remembering that the bones are so fluid,
Mhm.
which I often not feel like that. I'm much more stiff
Mhm.
or stuck. So this fluidity through the bones was swimming in space. And then my Feldenkrais work is always with the skeleton in a way. And I remember, so what the essence of my experience is like, let my pelvis be the container to be in, so that my head follows.
Hmm.
I remember we did a practice with Feldenkrais, like going through the door and then sticking your head out. And then the big question is, where are you? Are you where your head is in that space, or are you where your legs and pelvis are? And that was a big discovery, that I usually follow my head instead of really stay centered in a way, or grounded, or letting the bones carry me.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, thank you. Beautiful. Yeah. Other essential bits of experience. Yeah, Rivka. Thank you, Carola.
Just want to say first that staying like with the emptiness and the image of being etched in light was carried that into my dance, and it was the sense of being empty and etched in the light, and also filled with that divine presence, like, so both, and the emptying out. And I wrote down dancing. There's a moment of becoming the letters, the spaces of the letters that were etched, carved in the first set of tablets that floated, where you could see through them front and back. And really sense that in my bones and my being, in the name. So thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, Mimi, and then Yehudit.
Hi, everyone. So good to be here. That's in essence too. We'll get into this more with a loose bone, but remembering the yod and its connection to the sacrum, and the mobility and the motility, which I know so well from the craniosacral, practice that I do. So just remembering the letters, remembering that they're here. And the hay. And I ended up in a bow, in a child's pose kind of bow, and just letting go of ego, returning once again to source. I said death and birth, birth and death, a continuous process throughout a lifetime.
Thank you. Beautiful. And Yehudit.
Thank you. I have just two things. One is the fluidity of the bones. I felt like a series of waves, and it was delightful floating in those waves. And I have been feeling so heavy lately that it was such a relief. And the other thing is, I don't know what it is, but I've been choking and coughing a lot. doing a lot of going to doctors. There's nothing wrong, but there was cancer last time, so I don't know what it is. But the gasping for air, this allowed me to breathe in a way. I spend most of the time yawning, but it's such a relief when I do that. I can't stop the yawns, but I'm finally feel like I'm getting the air that I need. So I appreciate that.
Wow. Can I respond to what you just said a little?
Yes, please.
Your voice sounds very different right now than how it has sounded in the last Zooms that we've been on. And I can hear more relaxed breathing and less gasping. And I don't know what's happening, but when you've had a challenge to some part of the body like that and undergone treatment, there's trauma that's held there. So I'm guessing that there was some release of holding even from what you went through a while back that allows more freedom of the breath and ease in the vocal structure. So maybe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Feels better. Thank you.
Yeah, Michelle.
Health, yeah, before COVID, I was feeding the turtles. I fell, I banged these teeth. A couple of, maybe last week, I had a couple of root canals so that I get to keep my teeth. And unfortunately, the infection that was there that we're now treating with antibiotic is still there. And it was interesting that we were dancing about the bones because my teeth are seated in my jawbone. So I was sending it all this love and affection and telling it that Michelle was going to take care of Michelle. And what came up for me, because I have a tendency to use worry, nothing else. So in this, I saw my daddy when we were swimming in the ocean and he licked my eyelashes so that I wouldn't get salt water in my eyes. And I saw my mom kneeling at my feet and massaging them because I had walked home and it was very cold outside. She was a latchkey kid and never wanted me to be in pain. And I felt the energy of them loving me. And I said, Michelle, I'm going to take care of you. Make a list of all of the ways that you're supported. Listen to the silence and listen to me. I'm there for you. Which is a different voice than what do I do next? Did I do that right? Am I calling the right person? Am I this? Am I that? No. That's not the voice you listen to. Michelle, I'm going to take care of you. You're going to be just fine. We'll do this together. It was good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Your jawbone. May it heal. And Rhonda, did you raise your hand there? Yes.
I did, yeah. It's good to be with everyone. It's been a while, and tuning into the bones allowed me to tune into my parts that are kind of rigid and needing to be more fluid in my neck and my sacrum. And what came up was just some sadness about feeling like my vision of the world, my life, blah, 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 blah. Not quite what I had expected at this moment. But I have a tendency I push that away and focus on what can I do, that sort of thing. So it was good to honor the sadness and just be with that acknowledgement, it just is. And I'm aware of, the beauty and the universality and all of that. But it's also important for me at the level of my bones to recognize the grief. So I drew a little picture, which I don't know if will show up here. Let's see.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah, beautiful. Oh my, yeah.
It's just that sort of melting into the sadness. And as a result, my neck feels much better.
Isn't it weird the way that works?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
thank
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your shares, everybody. I pulled something out in my neck yesterday, just in the shower, reaching whatever. And it's very interesting to watch how different my response to that is now than it would have been years ago. And I just went, oh, okay, you want some attention. All right, where's my CBD cream? Where's my light infrared light pad? And me too, much better today and much better dancing. And I could feel like that it was a very isolated place. And instead of focusing on that place, I was able to come into everything around that place that could support it. And the flow returns, or it begins to return. And your body, my little whatever is trapezius bit or whatever scaling that got a little bit torn or stretched, it just says, oh yeah, thanks for paying attention. The other thing I just wanted to notice in that practice is these practices are layered and they're always evolving. And today was the first time for me that I ever acknowledged the Aleph as part of the practice. And, in the Abulafian chanting meditation that I've also practiced and done, the 4-letter, it's a 5-letter meditation, the Haskara practice, it's a combination of Aleph with each of the letters of the Yud He Vav He. And I just felt like the Aleph is maybe the most important part of that practice, because it's what's there just prior to, I was reading Larry Kushner, some of his work. It's the Aleph is what happens when you open your mouth to prepare to say, but nothing comes out, you don't say anything. So in a way, the Aleph is the support and the source of everything that would come out from that. And to go back to the Aleph is like deconstructing what is and getting a hit of pure creative energy to bring back with you into what is, which can be so challenging. Good. So we're going to take a breath and move into this exploration of the lose bone, and we'll do a little bit of kind of more looking at texts, and then we'll take a break and come back and do an extended embodied practice with the bones in a much more specific, a deeper way, and hopefully that will support each of us in all of the challenges that we're each facing. So Mimi, do you want to just say how this came up? And I actually got the book and I've been reading it, but why don't you tell us how this came up for you, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Wow. Well, I am taking, I think all of you know, I've been in a Doctor of Ministry program with Graduate Theological Foundation, and I am actually in my last official class before I have to take the research class, before I have to write my project. So I've written a ton of papers anyway, and I've been, so here, this is the last class. It's with Rabbi Sue Levy Elwell, and she co-edited with Nancy Fuchs Kramer this book called Chapters of the Heart: Jewish Women Sharing the Torah of Our Lives. And I was thinking about it, each one of us could write a chapter and a new book, because that's what's just so wonderful about this book. I've just finished it. This week is week 6, and I just finished the last 2 essays. And every essay has been so incredibly inspiring. So the very first week, I was reading an essay by Nancy Fuchs Kramer. And it's called Face Under the Chuppah, Relating to My Closest Stranger. And I'm reading, and she's starting to talk about the Tselem Elohim, the essence. And then all of a sudden she mentions this bone, the loose bone. And she says it's located at the top of the spine, exactly at the point where the mind connects with the body. And I immediately Googled loose bone. What in the world is this? And it also connects, some scholars say, and Diane, I'm sure you're going to talk about it, to the sacral bone. And it, in Hebrew, I think it means almond shape. But I said light in Spanish, and something just really sparked, because just a little background, and I will hold sacred time here. And Rhonda, you were there. We met. I think maybe for the first time. I was at the Kala in July, and I didn't get COVID. There was a lot of COVID, but I mean, I didn't test positive after 8 tests, a lot of tests, but I had a very bad case of vertigo, and then it morphed into this dizziness. And I've seen doctors, I've gotten scans, I ended up in the ER. We don't really know exactly what it is. I don't have the vertigo anymore, but I'm still a little disequilibrium, exhausted. It kind of felt like I had long, COVID, but that's another story. One neurologist said that I have occipital neuralgia, which is constriction at this bone. I hurt my neck at the Kala too, because I was doing Julie Emden's workshop in the morning and Julie Levitt's workshop in the afternoon. I was moving from 7 a.m. shock breed service to the evening program, and I could have really hurt myself then as well. So when I read Loose Bone, I went, it was just this light. It was just this, connection. And I know also when somebody comes to me in cranial work with with vertigo or dizziness, I go straight to the sacrum first. So I know that there's a deep connection between the two. And that sense of just being so open and expanded in Kala, and then having to come back to earth. And I just was like, oh, so I had a session with Diane, and I said, so what's this loose bone? Right? And that's the exploration, which I'm so grateful that you're going to be, we're doing this work, because I have my final paper to write, and I can't wait to just integrate the whole thing.
Thank you, Mimi. And Eileen had to go. She actually had emailed me before we met that they have this crisis in their family, in their extended family, and they're leaving for New York tomorrow, she and her husband, Jeff. So I'm so glad she was here with us for a while. If you want to send prayers toward her and her family, that would be, a good thing to do. So thanks, Mimi, for that context. So I really didn't know what the loose bone was, so that got me going. And I made some excerpts of some of the sources that we'll look at right now, kind of briefly, but if you want any of the longer articles, I'll send out links for everything, and you can explore this more on your own. So let me just bring up the screen again so we can look at this. Whoops, so that's Adar with our Hey Hey Yud Vav that we've done. That was very fruitful. Okay, so we're going to look at this in a few stages. First, the word lose, where does it come from? So yeah, Mimi said it means light in Spanish. In my mind, when I hear lose, I hear light. But in our tradition, the only place that I know of that this word occurs is in the story of Jacob's dream. So just a review of that really quickly. And I'm going to just read through these and run through these quickly because I really want to have time to do the exploration. But so just a reminder of this, Jacob has been running from his family, the wrath of his brother Esau after having stolen the blessing. And this is Parashat Vayetze. And this is a passage from the Midrash, Bereshit Rabbah. So this is classic rabbinic Midrash. Jacob awoke early in the morning. He took the stone and poured oil on top of it. So this is after his dream. He wakes up in Mano Ra Makom Hazeh, how awesome is this place, and God is in this place, and I did not know it. And then he sets up a stone and pours oil on top of it, and he called the name of that place Beit El, or Bethel, which becomes the capital later of the northern kingdom of Israel, much, much later, 1,000 years later. However, and it says this in the Torah, he called the name of the place Beit El. However, Luz was the name of the city initially, originally. And then this is the rabbinic midrash on what Luz is. So Luz, the place in which they dye sky blue wool. This is, let me just move this a little bit here. Okay. The place in which they dye sky blue wool. This is Luz that Sennacherib attacked, but did not transfer its population. Nebuchadnezzar attacked, but he did not destroy it. So these are the two waves of conquest that overtook the northern kingdom and then both kingdoms. But it was apparently the city or the town, whatever, was not destroyed. This is Luz, over which the angel of death never had dominion. What would the elderly among them do? When they would become very old, they would take people outside the walls to die because they couldn't die in the city. So that's the rabbinic connection here, is that Luz is a place where people never die. Rabbi Abba Bar Katana said, why is it called Luz? Because anyone who would enter it would proliferate mitzvot and good deeds like an almond tree. So Luz is almond, or seed of the almond actual nut. The rabbis say, just as the Luz has no opening, so too no man could ascertain the location of the city entrance. So just like an almond doesn't have an opening, it's completely enclosed in its shell. They couldn't find the entrance to the city. Rabbi Simon said Luz was located at the entrance of a city. Rabbi Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Pinchas, and Luz was located at the entrance of a cave. This is what traditional rabbinic midrash is. Everybody comes up with their own creative version and explanation. There was a hollow almond tree, and they would enter the cave through the almond tree and through the cave to the city. That is what is written. The sentries saw a man emerging from the city, and they said to him, show us now the way into the city, and we will act benevolently with you. So this is kind of a horrible story. He shows them in, they kill everyone but spare his family. And so Luz, to kind of forget about this horrible story that they end with. Just take a moment to breathe that out. But it's about a place where people do mitzvot and where death has no dominion. Okay. So again, here's what I shared a little bit earlier. Etzem in Hebrew, bone. It also means thing, object, item, essence, core, or gist. What is the gist of this conversation? What are the bones of it? And in general, substance, that which has substance. When you see the word etzem or atzmaot in Hasidic writings, it's usually talking about what is the essence of this? What is the gist of it, the core or the essentialness of a person? This is also from the Midrash. Seems like a later story, but Bereshit Rabbah. So this is the classic rabbinic Midrash, collection of Midrash on the book of Genesis. So Hadrian, who's, a Roman emperor, that's why it says, may his bones be ground up, because the rabbis didn't like the Romans, asked Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah, from what will God resurrect the dead? Because this is a core belief in rabbinic Judaism, that the dead will be resurrected in the Yemei HaMashiach, Yemot HaMashiach, the time to come. How is God going to resurrect the dead? And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah answered him, from the loos of the spine. And he said, how do you know? And he said, bring me one and I will show you. And he ground it up in a mill and it wasn't ground up. He burned it and it didn't burn. He put it in water and it didn't melt. He put it on an anvil and began striking it with a hammer. The anvil split, the hammer broke, but the bone was not diminished at all. Eitz Yosef in the Medrash says that luz is small like a nut and is at the end of the spine. So what is the luz bone? As we've said, it means nut or almond nut and refers to what some of the Jewish sages assert is this bone that hosts the soul in the human body. So this takes it a little bit farther. It's not just bone from which the dead will be regenerated in the times to come, resurrected. It's the bone that is the host of the soul. And interpretations disagree as to whether it refers to a bone at the top or the bottom of the spine. Some say it refers to the small almond-shaped bone at the top of the spinal column, like the first cervical vertebrae, C1, or the atlas. That's the top vertebrae. It's not really shaped like an almond, but some say that, right underneath the skull. Other traditions say that identify it with the coccyx as a bone shaped like an almond at the bottom of the end of the 18 vertebrae. And, there are definitely more than 18 vertebrae, but that's what they counted. The Talmud mentions this small bone at the end of the spine. So some refer to it as the coccyx, and also some connect it with the sacrum. And even the word sacrum that we use, which comes from the Latin for sacred, the sacred bone, is also at the bottom of the spinal column, but above the coccyx. The coccyx kind of hangs off the sacrum. Because the sacrum is the only bone in the spine, they say that looks like the head of a snake. And so in the Kabbalah, which is a much later tradition than the rabbinic tradition, it's posited that the sacrum is the luz bone. Sacrum has a pattern of dimples and its shape appears similar to an almond shell. And that this is the bone from which, at the time of resurrection, the body will be rebuilt, and that this bone doesn't decay. So this is an excerpt, and I'm not going to read through the whole thing, of a interesting, much longer article, and I'll send you, this is the link which I'll send you. Has a cute title, Get Up, Loosey Bones. Anyway, it's a long kind of Kabbalistic explanation of how the loose bone came to be, starting with in the beginning. I'm just going to skip to, for right now, this part, connecting the Tehom, the depths that are mentioned at the very beginning of Genesis, the unfathomable deep, and there was darkness on the face of the deep pre-creation, and that this has the same letters in it as death, Hamavet. And so they're connecting the state of being dead with this pre-created state of the deeps. And yet the Spirit of God is still hovering over the waters in the book of Genesis. Or this is when the Spirit of God, merachefet al panei hamayim. So the deeps are connected with death, and yet the Spirit of the divine is hovering over, and out of that creation will come. In the same way, the spirit, the soul hovers over our loose bone. So this is kind of a long Kabbalistic explanation, but that the body is decomposing in the darkness after death when it's buried, and it waits illumination from the dew, the towel, which is the waters of resurrection. And when that happens, God will use the loose bone to rebuild the newly resurrected body. So this is a more contemporary, a fun kind of thing to think about that I found online. And again, I'll send you I didn't put it here, but I'll send you the link to this. What is this loose bone? So this guy who's writing this blog says that my oldest son's Harav Mordechai's Sheva Brachas, so wedding celebration, our uncle Harav Hagaon Moshe Tendler said over the Midrash, and he continued and he said, and I think I'm quoting him verbatim, it's a beautiful chazal. The problem is there ain't no such bone. So what he's saying is that's a great story. That's a great rabbinic story, but there isn't such a bone. And he goes on about that. Well, this guy has found a bunch of articles and research that there actually is a bone in the skull that current scientists, paleontologists, have found doesn't decompose, or it doesn't decompose at the rate of the other bones. And they've been able to isolate DNA from this particular bone, which is the petrous portion of the temporal bone. This is the temporal bone in green here. And this part that sticks out is called the petrous, which means wall, the petrous portion. And it's in the petrous portion of the temporal bone that we find the inner ear. But anyway, he found these articles, the skull's petrous bone, and what it can tell us about ancient humans, that it's about an inch-long section of the skull. And this little part here, this is called the auditory meatus. So this is, if you had your outer ear, it would be here. And this is, the tunnel that leads into your ear, which is an interesting connection with that rabbinic story about the tunnel that leads into the cave that leads into the city of Luz. Anyway, this is the tunnel that leads in, and then here's where the inner ear is located inside this bone. We'll look at it in more detail in a moment. And that, the bone is very hard, maybe because it needs to protect the fragile structures of the inner ear, which are the organs not only of hearing, but they also are the vestibular organ. They tell us where we are, where our body is in space, and translates sound into brain signals, helps us maintain balance, speaking about being dizzy. And it's so dense that it lasts longer and preserves DNA better than other bones. So when they find this bone, they're able to find out more about the person that lived in that body. It says it's a real game changer in the field of ancient DNA. So that's a little bit about the luz bone. Pretty interesting. Yeah, Michelle.
Thinking of the importance of our prayer Shema related to what you just told us with that bone, the importance of attention and listening because of the location.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. It's not the first sense to develop, that's more smell and taste. But hearing and, where we are in space, it's very, very early and precedes the visual for sure in development. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we take just a little break? And then we'll come back and do a.
I wondered if there are also connections with the Lamed because of Luz and the Lamed and the Zion.
Mm.
And, I want to share because you said something in the announcement about Jacob's dream and these bones, and I'm following Bonnie's course on the stress, and she is showing so much tissue breathing in a way, not bones, not moving through muscles and bones. So I was a little bit off bones. How is this related to bones? And I couldn't make that connection. And then I remembered Melila Hellner on the Zohar teachings on Jacob's dream. And she was laughing and she said it was just an erection, like the ladder and the angels. So it's just the penis and the erection and the semen and the seed and the fertility and life. So I was with that image and loose, so the lamed and like up and down, going up and down. So I still feel there is a mystery behind it.
Yeah, I hope that we'll address that when we do the somatization, the movement piece or the movement body meditation. But just to say that there's so many different ways of looking at this. And in Bonnie's last class, she worked on the pelvis and the spine and the connection. So that's another way of experiencing this ladder internally. I mean, we have many internal axes, as we have many vertical axes inside ourselves, and the bones are one of them. And it's a very interesting experience. And that's what came out in the session I did with Mimi, and that we'll explore a little bit more. Yeah, Mimi, you were gonna also add something.
I was first gonna say, like, no wonder, like, ever since our session, I've been kind of really tuning into my ears and my temporal bone, like we talked and we practiced, and it's so releasing. Like, it's been one of the most helpful things. So that was just a observation. There's this opening, just spaciousness comes in. Like now, like just when I was doing it. And we connected the Lamed when we were like just even the shape of the spine. So that is interesting about the Lamed.
If you could imagine the Lamed turning, into the sagittal plane, take it off the paper three-dimensionally, then it has like the curves of the spinal column, not the cord, not the axis, but the actual curves that develop in relation to gravity. And also just that heaven and earth bridging. So that's the Lamed. The Vav also has that, except it's more like the spinal cord or the, the nodal
Hmm.
cord. And
Yeah.
then the Zion, its quality is of radiance, radiating. That's the movement of the Zion. So there's a vertical connection and a radiation. And there's, different layers of verticality in that. So yeah, there's a lot to play with there, visually, kinesthetically, symbolically. There's a lot to play with there. Zion is, I think I've mentioned so many times that I worked with this teacher who at San Diego State, who for each of the letters of the alphabet, he found an essential movement, was connected with an essential movement. And Zion is either kind of radiating or scattering.
Hmm.
Zohar, radiance, and words that begin with that letter are all related for him. It's not
Mhm.
just the 2 or 3 letter roots. He looks at the movement of each letter and the family of words that constellates around that letter. So let's take a 5-minute break and to take care of ourselves. And then when we come back, we'll have about an hour to do this exploration, and probably not too much time to process it, but I trust that you'll have time to either let it go into the unconscious or else do more with it on your own. But I'll see you in about 5 minutes.
And would you share the name of the man who did the Hebrew letter movements? Could you put that in the chat for us?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Whoops, I spelled. So let's come on back. I'm going to bring up, we'll take a little look at the skeleton as we begin this exploration.
Hmm.
Whoops. Come on, honey. So just a little look at bones here. In general, this form. This is a female skeleton. Put you over here.
Hmm.
I turn her around, well, sideways first. Here's the lamed of the spine. You can see it. Tip of the tail, lumbar curve, thoracic curve, cervical curve, and up to. We're going to zero in for a minute here on the bones of the skull, the occipital bone. You can see from the side. So here's what we just looked at. This is the temporal bone, and this part that's thicker with the mastoid process is the petrous portion. Just look at that one bone. This part is called the petrous or petrous portion. It's dense, it's thick. And you can see, let's see here, you can see close up. This is the ear canal. And then inside are all the little bones that we can't really see here. So we're going to actually be, let's see if I can bring us back. And then you can see that there's an analogy here. We have this is the occipital bone, and this is the bone that has joints here with the very top vertebra. So here's the top vertebra, the atlas, and you can see these little joints with a little bit of cartilage here. This is the base of the occipital bone. This is the articular, it's called facets. So the articular surfaces that connect this top vertebra where we say the feet of the skull sit on the footprints of this top vertebra. We'll just isolate this bone for a minute. You can see how it's shaped. It's not exactly like an almond, but and here's the little feet, the footprints, the places where the occipital bone rests. Its feet here. And then if we look at this bone by itself, here are its feet that rest in those footprints. Here is the opening through which the spinal cord passes. And so then the brain is sitting here in these curves. The back part of the cortex, the visual cortex, is toward the back, and the cerebellar The two sides of the cerebellum are sitting here in these depressions. And there's a joint here with the sphenoid bone. And the sphenoid bone then is shaped like a butterfly. And so let's see if we can find the sphenoid bone just to isolate it a little bit here. So that's part of the occipital bone still that you can see through the eye sockets. There's the sphenoid bone, just the right side of it. No, that's not it. It's hard to get to. That's ethmoid. Here we go. This is the sphenoid bone. And there you can see the place where it has a joint with the occipital bone, and together they make the cranial base, but also part of the eye socket. And here's the little saddle. It's called the sella turcica, or the Turkish saddle, and the pituitary gland sits right in there, hangs down from the brain. So it's hard to get a sense of this. It's easier if you could hold it in your hands. Then this is the nasal septum, so the eyes, the nose, base of the brain. It's also connected. This looks like a giant butterfly. And then if you sort of look at the whole system, this ladder of the spine, you have the occipital bone at the top, the vertebrae, sacrum, the coccyx, and then you have the two pelvic halves that connect to the sacrum. Very much like the sacrum is analogous to the occipital bone. So that's where you get this craniosacral work, and how the movement of the craniosacral fluid in the head, in the skull, the ventricles of the brain, transmitted all the way down to the bottom of the spine through the joints of the vertebrae, that the two temporal bones, similar to the two sacrum, two pelvic bones, kind of similar structure, connected to a central bone, occiput, and the sacrum. Here it is on the other side. We have this bone, similar to this bone, well, this whole bone. And then you have the feet of the pelvis, the ischial tuberosities, similar structure to the feet of the occiput that rest on the top of the spine. So this is a ladder. I think it could be seen that way and felt that way. So what we're going to start with, I'll guide us through this. We're going to start with a little self craniosacral work to release the joints here between the temporal bones and the occiput, this joint right here on either side, to free up the movement by releasing this joint here.
Hmm.
And in the same way, when we get to the bottom, we're going to work to release this joint here between the pelvic half and the sacrum, and this joint here, as well as this joint in the front, which has a cartilaginous disc there. I just added some cartilage. But without the cartilage, you can see that it's a space. There, without the, excuse me, the ligament there, and there's also a disc. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do this as a body meditation, and I'm just going to guide us through for about the next 35 minutes or so. So I invite you to, as we do this, to make yourself comfortable, and I'll try to offer some different possibilities. There'll be a point at which I'll invite you to go down to the floor if that works for you. If it doesn't work, you can do it sitting or even standing with the pelvis, and feel free to, try to adapt this. If we were in the same room, I could help you a little bit more adapt this for yourself. So just a little bit of shaking out of your arms. We're going to use our own hands on our body for as well as visualizing. So you might want to, if you feel comfortable taking off your glasses, you won't need to see for this. I'm going to guide you so you can have your eyes closed as much as you want and just take in the instructions, the suggestions, see where it takes you. Start just rubbing your hands together a little bit as well. Great. And then just bringing your hands to your face and letting your fingers kind of soften your face, just like Play-Doh, softening, a little bit of pinching and pulling the skin and the muscle and the fascia away from the bones. So we're literally inviting the soft tissue to open up, to loosen and open up more space between the layers so that the bones can be more free. And part of this is also exploratory. So as we go through, you can notice what is it that you feel under your fingers as you're doing, or in your body as you're visualizing. And just note that for yourself. See if you can release all judgment about whatever you discover, and just let it be information that you could be curious about. So I'm pinching my eyebrows a little bit, see what feels good to you, pulling them away from the frontal bone, and then I'm loosening the skin on my forehead, just circling that around. I'm bringing some awareness and looseness to the front of my, just in front of your ears, where that little bit of cartilage is. You can open your mouth and close it to find your temporal mandibular joint. So that's the joint between the jaw and the temporal bone, which is where we're going. That's it, where the ears are. Sounding is always good, and yawning. And then just massaging the outer ears, around the rim of your ears. This should be helpful for your teeth too, Michelle. You can be very gentle with this, but you can put your fingers a little bit inside the ears and just loosen them up. They actually have little muscles that have atrophied for many people, because we used to be able to turn our ears just like a cat or a dog so we could hear better. A little bit of tapping, patting. all the way then to the back as well. I'm going to take off my kippah so that I can give myself a little, scalp loosening. You can gently hold your hair and loosen, or just do it with your fingers on your scalp. And then tap and pat. You can also gently pinch the skin and the muscle at the back of your neck to begin to loosen that area that gets so tight. Be very gentle, but it actually can feel very good if you, just as if it were Play-Doh. I mean, some of it feels to me more like rock, but I'm imagining that it could be Play-Doh. Ah. Soft tongue as you do this. Ah. So if you put your hands now kind of around your ears like this, we're sort of mapping out here the shape of the temporal bones on either side. So these are the bones that would be analogous to the pelvic bones, with the occipital bone in the middle. So just take a moment to pause there. See if you can remember a little bit what the skull looked like just now when we looked at it, and absorb that image into your experience of it in yourself. I mean, part of this is just noticing how your own process works. Are you more visual, more kinesthetic? Do you want to make some humming sounds to help you find these bones? If you feel with your thumb right behind your ear, and there's a very hard portion there with muscle attachments, the mastoid process, so some of the neck muscles attached there. A process in the bones it means it's kind of a lump or a bump that serves as an attachment, and it's shaped by the pulling of the muscles on it. So a baby's skull would be much different. Your baby skull doesn't have as much shape as your adult skull, because the muscles haven't worked on it. So just shake out your arms a little if they're tired. I'm noticing that because I'm talking out loud while I'm doing this, when I hold my hands there, it amplifies the sound amazingly. If you make some sounds or talk, you'll be able to hear so much more clearly and loudly than with the hands not there, and the sound is just dispersing. So this move is, if you've done any craniosacral work, that temporal ear pull. It's a very delicate, it's hardly any force at all, but you get a little grip on the outer rim of the cartilage of your outer ear. And then forefingers go a little bit inside, thumbs behind. That's how I do it anyway. And it's almost more intention than it is action. But the intention is that you are gently pulling on the fascia, gently inviting the fascia to widen in the service of releasing the joints that connect these temporal bones to the occiput in the back, and giving that occipital bone more breathing room. So your breath can help you as you do this. It's lovely to have someone else do this for you, but we don't always have that. So we can do it for ourselves. I'm dropping my nose a little bit forward so that I don't have undue tension on the back of my neck muscles. And that also helps release the occiput. Maybe your breath you'll have a deeper breath, a sigh. Maybe you want to experiment with moving the fingertips, the fingers up a little bit to grip a slightly different part of the outer ear. And you might notice, if you can bring your attention really into a subtle, deep place, you might notice that there's just some natural unwinding that wants to happen through these bones. You might find as you're pulling that one ear starts to seem like it's moving down, the other moving up, or they're moving in somewhat different directions. You might not feel anything like that, but if you do, just follow the movement. Let your awareness and even your fingers follow the movement that wants to happen. Don't fight against it. So when we're pulling to the sides, we're offering a direction, but then as the bones start to free, they teach us what they need to do to unwind the tension that's holding them. Notice if there's any effects in your belly, your feet or legs, the base of your pelvis, your genitals. It's hard to notice effects in the chest when we're using our own arms to do this, but okay, so just release the hands now and rest your arms. Maybe you just want to let your arms massage each other a little bit, your hands and arms and shoulders, and also the back of your neck again. And from this place, we're just going to do a roll down. So you can do it sitting or you can stand and do it. But you might want to, if you're sitting, be on the edge of your chair. So starting from, we've done this many times, so we're just going to tip the skull forward, but subtly, just so you begin by opening that space between your occipital bone and your top vertebra, your atlas. Opening that space up. And we're going to focus this time. We often do this as a nerve release, but we're going to focus on the vertebrae. And so that lamed that's extending up to heaven, we're just letting it bow gradually, bone by bone. Each bone is like a rung of the ladder. Each vertebra has a kind of horizontal dimension to it, like the rung of the ladder, and just keep coming down, bone by bone by bone. At your own pace. If you get to a place in your spine where you can't feel separate bones, maybe that's your whole spine, but some spots might feel fused together. Just pause there, come back away from that area a little bit, back up, and then come into it again, breathing. Just imagining the rungs of the ladder. If you can't feel them, that's fine. It's a place to begin. Let the breath help you. You might want to pass through one place back and forth 2 or 3 times, and then just assume that it's beginning to wake up, even if you can't feel it, and continue onward, coming all the way down. Until you begin to come in, feel the place where you're with your sacrum and pelvic halves. And if you can pause there, if you're sitting, you can brace with your arms a little bit to support that. Feel the legs as extensions of your pelvic halves on each side. You can brace with your arms on your legs or on your table or your desk. And just rest there a little bit. And breathe. So I'm going to guide you in something that we do mostly lying on the floor. If that's not available to you, you can do it sitting. I'm going to have a little more trouble guiding you in that. But if you can go all the way down to the floor, I invite you to try that. And I am going to go down too. I hope you'll be able to hear me okay. It's easier for me to guide this when I'm actually doing it with you. So you can lie on your back with your knees up, if that works for you. And just bring your awareness and your touch to the pubic symphysis, that is the joint in the pubic bone that we looked at. It's connected by ligaments and a disc. And see if your imagination can take you underneath to the space between those two halves of the pelvis, the two pubic parts of the pelvic bones. See if you can imagine the space that's underneath the connecting tissue there. And breathe into that space and begin to imagine or give permission for those two pubic bones to move a little bit away from each other and a little bit toward each other. You can encourage this feeling with your own fingers there as you're lying on your back, but there's a kind of narrowing that even pulls your legs a little bit, your thighs a little bit toward each other, and then a widening that opens your thighs a little bit away from each other. So you may find that your legs want to open and come together a little bit as you do this movement, as you encourage this movement. And you can do this sitting as well, or standing. And so that is the horizontal movement, horizontal plane movement. Then if you counter move them up and down, so one side up, the other side down, and then reverse that. And you can encourage that with your fingertips and your breath. So this is the movement of the two pelvic halves at the pubic joint in the vertical plane. Go slow, gently, don't force it. Maybe it's not even a movement, just an idea at this point, that's fine. One side comes up, the other side moves down, and then you gently reverse that. And if you're having trouble feeling anything or finding it, try doing it much smaller. Do it more subtly, smaller. Just small. You'll notice there's shifting through your pelvis in whatever position you're in, sitting or lying down. As you do this, it's going to affect the other parts of the pelvic bone, the other joints. And then kind of returning to more neutral, we'll do one more set of movements here, and this will be letting one pubic half bone come forward and the other one move back, and then reversing that. So they're countering each other in the sagittal plane, counter moving. And this is the way we begin to free up the bones, is to, at any joint, to move the bone on one side of the joint in one direction, countering that with the opposite movement in the other side of the joint. You can do this kind of practice at any joint to begin to find more freedom, more space for the bones. And I'll just say that bones have both fluid and nerves, as well as all the muscle attachments. So we have a lot of sensory possibility with our bones, as well as the movement possibilities. So whatever is going on with our nervous systems and our brains is also going to be reflected in our bones, and vice versa. What's happening with our bones affects all the other systems, including our brain. Okay. Good. So coming back to more neutral, just take a moment to breathe and feel whatever the effects are of that practice. Maybe you want to just do a little bit of free moving or stretching or breathing or resting. Now we're going to do a little exercise, a little practice to free up the sacroiliac joint. So that is the place where the sacrum meets the two pelvic halves in the back. So you can start, if you're on the floor, you might want to roll to one side with your knees bent up. If you're sitting, you can just stay in your sitting posture and take your fingertips to the back. Find those, if you can find those joints, it usually feels a little bit like lumpiness on either side, a little lumpiness on either side of the sacrum in the middle. So find the sacrum first, which feels kind of like a big flat bone in the middle, and then move out from that center until you feel the lumpy places where the pelvic halves are coming into connection with the sacrum. And we can just pause there. If you can be there with one hand while you're on your side, or two hands if you're sitting, just breathe. And if you can feel the breath moving all the way down into your pelvis in the back, each breath a little bit of an expansion. So if you're lying on your side now, just release your arms, and we're going to roll from one side to the other in segments. And I'll give the sitting instructions in a moment. So as you're lying on your side, whichever side you're lying on, that pelvic half is going to initiate the rolling, and your legs can be bent and knees up toward your chest. So the underneath side of your pelvis starts to move backward toward the other side, and go slow and pause, and there is a sense of a little bit of opening and stretching at the joint between that pelvic half and the sacrum. And breathing. And then as you continue, the sacrum will come toward the floor, and you keep your upper pelvic half and leg hanging back so that the joint on the other side of the sacrum gets a chance to be stretched a little bit and open and breathed into. And finally, you let that upper pelvic half roll toward the floor, holding your thigh back a little bit so that the hip socket gets opened and stretched. And when you feel the fullness of that movement, you roll, just let your legs roll, everything roll to the other side. And so we're going to do that same process on the other side, starting with the other hip, whichever hip is on the bottom. And for sitting, it's more simply just finding that, choosing one side of the pelvis to start, to initiate. Moving back, and you can use your hands to stretch apart the joint on that side. And of course the thigh bone is going to be affected as well. I'm going to sit so I can do the sitting version and say it better. Then the sacrum will turn, so this is a rotational movement. Then the other pelvic half will come along after you've had time to open that joint, and finally you're going to cross your legs and get the fullness of that, a twist. And when you come back, it's the you begin with the side of the pelvis that is not the leg that's crossed over, but the underneath leg. Then you bring the sacrum, then the other pelvic half, then you let your legs uncross and you cross the other leg on top. So take a couple more of these rolls on your own time, and if you have questions afterwards, I'll try to answer them. But see what you discover if you do this in, so it's a segmented movement, initiating with one pelvic half, then bringing the sacrum, then the other pelvic half, and then finally the legs, to begin to get some more breathing space and movement space at the sacroiliac. I'll give you another moment or so to practice this, either rolling on the floor, on your back, or seated. And if you're kind of lost with it, you can just play with the movements of the pelvic halves and the sacrum, stabilizing the sacrum, moving the pelvic halves around it, or whatever helps you to feel more movement, more jointedness of these bones. If you want to find a kind of neutral place, we'll bring in one more very important set of bones, and that is the coccyx. So hanging off of the end of your sacrum could be 3, 4, 5 little bones that form your tail. And what we want to practice is see if you can stabilize the sacrum a little bit, and you can use your own hands to do this. Find whatever position works for you. If you can do it while lying on your back on the floor, sitting in a chair, or lying on your side. And just practice the tip of your tail, your coccyx moving forward, feeling how that draws the whole spine into a C curve. Then the tip of the tail moving back, and the whole spine is brought into a slight arch. Do it small and subtle. And then you can play with doing a little bit of counter movement. Move the sacrum one way and the tail the other way. So as the sacrum moves kind of into an arch, the tail moves into a little curve. This is very small and subtle. As the tail moves backward, the sacrum slightly moves forward, bottom of the sacrum, so they're countering each other. Small, gentle breath. Maybe the tip of the tail wants to move to the left and the sacrum moves to the right. Maybe they both move to the left and the right, so you can feel the difference there. It might help to have one hand in the back there and the other hand in the front at the pubic bone, so that doesn't get locked. And just begin to feel the possibilities of more floating in this area of the body that tends to be so stabilized, so held. More floating. It's the image of a lot of African dance where the pelvis is so fluid, or hula. So if you are lying down, I'm going to invite you to, you can stay on the floor, but come to sitting gradually. Find your way up to sitting, if sitting on the floor is comfortable for you, so that you can feel that you are planting, the feet of your pelvis are standing on the floor, or the earth coming through the floor. And bring your awareness, as you do that, the images of the ladder, Jacob's ladder, with the feet standing on the ground, and the head of the ladder, the top of the ladder, stretching up to heaven. And just work your way with your awareness as if you were climbing, that you are an angel climbing on that ladder, coming up. Sacrum, lumbar, step by step. If it helps to use your hands in some way on your own body, whatever you can reach. Again, this is a great thing to do with a partner. Coming up through the thoracic vertebrae, and all the ribs attach to the sides of those vertebrae. So this will start to bring in the rib rungs of your ladder. As you come up through the thoracic spine, you can begin to find some movement of the ribs, perhaps. And then as you come up higher, you'll come through the cervicals, and it brings your arms in. The nerves to the arms are coming out, and the shoulder girdle resting on the rib case. And as you come up into your head, you can feel those two temporal bones, your ears, the occiput in the middle, and then you have the two, what are called the parietal bones that connect the two sides of your head, the forehead and the front face. It brings that whole ladder in. Maybe your arms want to stretch up. There's no more rungs, but they're reaching for the heavens. And feeling the feet of your pelvis, the feet of your head, your fingertips, the feet of your feet. If you want to come up to standing, you can do that as well. Feeling this body as ladder, connecting heaven and earth. And whatever are your angels are going up and down it. God is in this place, and I don't always know it. Just to amend Jacob a little bit there. So I'm going to just play a little bit of music to transition us. If you want to move, rest, write, journal, we'll take about 3 minutes and then come back together to share from this experience. time to share, and if there are any thoughts or experiences that you can put into words, or questions that came up, insights. Yeah, let's take a few minutes to share. It's always good just to notice how you're feeling in general, and what might have shifted as a result of whatever experience you just had.
Quiet, still, together. And I have three essences. One is the hearing. I have hearing aids, and it's very often so painful because the sound coming from the outside bombards those areas of the bone here. So by tender touch, it releases so much tension. And I also notice when I put my hands back there, I hear better. So maybe I will practice even more too, instead of hearing aids. I don't know. Find a big receiver here. I don't know. Well, anyway, that is one powerful. Also, letting my head hang, feel support there. Yeah, spacious support. That was one. And then I sent you an email with the mandorla. You know the mandorla, the two circles who when they meet, they make that inner almond space. For me, that's very much what is happening. The circle on the left and the circle on the right, creating the middle, or the front or the back and creating the middle.
Yeah.
And movement, so how you guided us even helped to make that even more clear. So I sent you the pictures and you can use them, but I feel the almond is a spacious.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
The almond, yeah.
Almond, right.
It's a space, yeah.
It's a space, which is this hidden door.
I think we also call that the vesica piscis.
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, that was the second essence. And then playing with the tail separate from the sacrum. That was funny because I felt like my little child wiggling tail, so it was excitement, excitement, arousal in a way.
Yeah.
But a playfulness. And I thought, oh, I need to do that more often because then, it feels like this fluidity coming back, because I think I hold my tail a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. If you go back and look at the last recording of Bonnie's last class, she talks about that and the tail being held, and what happens when many of us have fallen on our tails and it gets, either
Yeah.
broken or pushed to the side or just held. And
Yeah.
that closes the energy off at the whole kundalini at the base
Yeah.
of the spine. So yeah, thank you, Corolla. Thank you for those essences. Yeah, other insights or experiences just to name. I wanted to say something. It came to me earlier and I didn't spit it out, but pedagogically there's something important about finding the words, some words to express your experience. It's part of the body mind centering way of moving back and forth between these kind of ineffable spaces and language. Both it helps integrate for the person speaking. So that's one of the great benefits when we share. And the other is that we build a kind of group wisdom of insights and different, because we each have a different experience. So we all benefit from the learning that the other people have had. And the same is true, you could say, of spiritual experience. I mean, it's not different from the embodied experiences, which are so ineffable. Spiritual experiences, we speak about the divine as unspeakable. You know, we can't name. And so when we share in this way, there's something that comes through. For each of us, getting more clarity or more integration, and then building that common pool. So, yeah, I wanted to name that. So yeah, Mimi.
On that note, finding words, more aliveness, and, whole, feeling more whole. You know, like the parts of me are more connected right now. And there's this sense of continuing fluidity, you know, you just kind of feel that aliveness, that potency, that bubbling, like a little bubbling brook that's moving, which I know is there, but I can't always access it.
Yeah.
With all these just places that have gotten stuck. So it's just, I agree with the playfulness too, because when we were moving, my lower part of my body just became more alive, and I wanted to just, just skip and jump, and also, yeah, it was very sensual, playful in more of an abandoned way.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, it seems to me, you know, so many people now talk about how sitting too much actually shortens our lives, you know. And what I notice right now is having, especially the tail part with the sacrum, the pelvis, my neck is a lot more released from doing that. And I can see how, you know, we really do cut off our life force when we're sitting too much, and those pelvic bones and the tip of the tail gets kind of, you know, smushed underneath. The pelvic bones get frozen. So this is, you know, the aliveness, the chiyut that we cultivate when we allow this to move more is vital, you know, to our well-being and our creativity and just the balance of flow through the whole system.
One more thing I thought of, well, Eileen Yehudit, is that, yeah, because during my experience, I started just like, just opening, and there was phlegm, and like my voice feels a lot clearer, my throat feels a lot clearer. So I thought about that opening, not only for the ears and hearing, but also for the throat and speaking.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Rhonda, yeah.
Well, thank you. I wanted to say the first word that came was yum. So it's very yummy at the body level, and yeah, and I do a lot of sitting, so, and my pelvis has gotten literally kind of frozen. So I couldn't quite find my tail, but I know it's there somewhere. So, but it was sort of fun just to like imagine that separate movement. And I also feel like my neck and shoulders are much freer. I just feel more, I feel like I grew an inch. So, so good reminders to come up the ladder and, let things find their places. And I feel much more at peace than when we started today, which is really interesting. I mean, I can't say there's a lot of cognitive anything, but just the release of the body, I think, was really important.
Yeah, you look quite different energetically than you did. And when we did our opening kind of meditation and you were with the grief,
Mhm.
your whole body kind of went into that place. And we talk so much about Adar being the month of joy, and Adar comes in and joy increases, and of course spring is beginning to spring a little bit, at least in California it is. And I don't know about Netherlands, but or the East Coast. Um, but we have some flowers starting to come out and everything. But this is the way to joy, is not by bypassing our grief. We have to kind of go into it, but it's within that.
Mhm.
How do we then mobilize? It's not about, stuckness, but the going in is for the sake of the fluidity. I mean, even tears, and of beginning to mobilize. And once you mobilize, the whole situation might not be any different, but our way of being within it is, different, not intellectually so. I mean, we all know about attitude and all of that, but actually the tools to have a different experience.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, you seem expanded, and you've got on your embodying spirit T-shirt.
Right. Saw that.
I thought it was on the top of the t-shirt list, so
Right, the pile.
how perfect.
Thank you. And to add to that, I had the feeling that the WAF for me became fluid. Usually I see the WAF as this stick, Yeah, really a male sense of, but now it was way like the wiggling tail, flowing, a flowing WAF.
Yeah, the Vav and the Lama, they can both flow. It's movement.
Mhm.
So Michelle, did you want to add something to our soup here?
Sure. The first word that came to me when we were done was exquisite. It's like my various parts are breathing right now. My face, my arms. And then I said to myself, is that breath or is that heartbeat? And of course it didn't matter. But there's such a feeling of relief and movement. And I learned something fairly directly that, as you all noticed, I have a dog. And when I released to the floor, I discovered I spend very little time on the floor, and the various stretches and positions that my body can get into. It's so delighted after its first shock of, oh my gosh, where am I? Oh, that hurts. No, I guess no, it doesn't. Hey, that doesn't hurt. That sure feels good. And then, of course, the dog decided to sit on me while we were doing this. And she teaches me to be open to anything that happens when I surrender.
Mm.
And it's one of the biggest gifts that I get. Instead of I'm involved in ESEB and I'm going to put you in the other room, and it's only about thinking about my sacrum and my this and my, no. It's about moving into the experience and opening up to see what happens.
Mhm.
She teaches me that all the time. And so do you. And that's why I come here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, animals, they really get this stuff. I mean, they don't have the filters that we have. And my cat Chico used to assist me sometimes in bodywork sessions, and I would, have the instinct to go to somebody's feet, for instance, and Chico would go around to their head and reach out his paw kind of on their forehead or something. Or if I was at the head, he would go down and put his paw like on their tail, or by their. It was uncanny. He always knew where to go, and how to participate. So, yeah, animals are our teachers for sure. So we're just gonna finish. I wanna this book. Thank you, Mimi, for turning me on to this book. I didn't know about it, and it is fabulous. It's a series of essays by women teachers, rabbis, most of whom I think came out of RRC, the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, and each one, obviously, the assignment was to connect something in your own life to some aspect of Torah or Judaism. We got a little bit of phone ringing, I think, but
Oi.
it's okay. So I just want to read the last bit of what you shared with us was the section from Nancy Fuchs Kramer's essay, it's called The Face Under the Huppah, and it's about how she's in the middle of having an argument with her husband, and she doesn't recognize this person that she married when they get into a spat. The book is called Chapters of the Heart, and we'll send this out, but
I put it in the chat.
great, thank you. And in this essay, she beautifully weaves in all of these teachings about what it means to be B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God, as we're confronting, having a fight with our partner or whatever. But the last part of what Mimi shared with us was this little part about the luz bone. The name comes from the story of Jacob, who famously dreamt of a ladder between heaven and earth, and he named the place Bethel. But its name, according to Genesis, was originally Luz. The Luz, then, is God's home inside us, the inner manifestation of that ladder of divine-human connection. Then she writes, in an essay, the Israeli novelist David Grossman calls the luz bone the spark of uniqueness, or the core of the soul. And in his novel, a novel that I haven't read called Be My Knife, Grossman has his hero say, quote, I gave my luz up for lost until the sweet and crazy notion came to me that maybe my luz isn't in me at all, but in someone else. Perhaps Grossman's character was onto something. Neuroscientists have begun talking about the circuits in the brain they call mirror neurons. A mirror neuron is a neuron that fires both when an animal acts and when the animal observes the same action performed by another. If indeed our brains have in their very neuronal structure the capacity to know others' brains, feel others' pain, catch others' joy, then we are connected to one another not only because we make up rules, but because along with the instinct for self-preservation, there is the reality of connection. That too is part of our evolved selves. Our luz bone is in an other. The sense that we are all images of the same one captures that connection. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
So if we
Wow.
could find our luz bones and then know that they're all in others, that might help the situation that humanity has gotten ourselves into.
Amen.
Yeah.
Man.
So
What's the title of David Grossman's book?
Well, in English, it's
Be my knife.
Be My Knife.
Knife.
Knife. Be My Knife.
Interesting.
That was my son. I have to go.
Okay.
But thank you so much. It was so wonderful to see all of you. Oh,
And thank you for initiating.
Wow.
it all.
And good luck with your paper, your final thing.
Yeah, really.
thanks.
Powerful,
Hmm.
Okay,
powerful.
And I just
yeah,
wanted to acknowledge the loss of Ida Unger.
yeah,
Of who?
Ida Unger. She's
Yeah, yeah, right.
yeah.
Yes,
it's part of the body mind.
yeah. And Eshet Chazon, yeah.
Chef Kazan and a yoga teacher who taught at all the Kalot and
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. That was. I didn't know. I knew that she wasn't well, but I didn't realize that she was in that bad of shapes.
Yeah, I received a notification
yeah, me
through
too.
through the lists a little while ago that she was not doing well. So
Yeah.
We also lost a dancer and choreographer in Albuquerque, Pilar Neto. The
oh,
whole community is sending her love and peace.
Mm.
this
They were
just
involved in Carnival, and
uh,
on the second day she was gone.
just this week. Or-
Yeah.
Oh, so
Hmm.
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
Wow.
we hold all the souls, and we hold you as you're in the middle of your transition, Kaola, to a new,
yeah. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
new home.
But it's a miracle, you know.
It's joyful.
Yeah, I'll write you my new address and send pictures to all of you. I only send to Diane some. Yeah, it's a miracle. So it's thin, how you call that? Thin veils between the unseen and the seen worlds. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So many people dying, so much chaos, and at the same time, so much beauty and presence. Yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot to hold.
It is.
yeah, right. A lot to hold.
Well,
And
may
like this, sorry, this Hineni Osa et Atzmi Merkaba Le Shekhinah. So I thought we really are building this light body or awareness presence, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
thank
Yeah,
God is-
that helps.
yeah. Well,
All
thank
right.
you all for being here together and building this light body together. And have
Thank you for creating this container for us, Diane.
Thank
I look
you.
forward to seeing you next month. I'll
Right.
be there with
All
all
right.
of you.
We'll see you. All the best.
Yeah.
take care.